Hello everyone, welcome back. Hope you're all doing wonderfully today. And I don't know how many of you managed to get around to doing your little assignment from yesterday. I did see the ones in the Facebook group, so that was great. It's all about putting this stuff into practice. There'll be another little assignment for you to do later today as well. I'll try and get through to all of the questions as well. If you have got a question, drop it in with a Q colon at the beginning. It'll help me to find it. I did go back through the chat yesterday and I realized I probably did miss a few out somehow. So I don't know quite how I missed those, but I'll try to do better today and get to all of those. Great to see you all here. Hey, Paul, obviously. Great to see you right at the top there. Natalie, Mark, Marianne, great to see you. I loved your video, Marianne, by the way, and I love the way that you did that with the in the Facebook group, showing people how to interact on Zoom. It's a great little way to demo, isn't it, where they can really kind of see what they're supposed to do. Hi there, Michael. Great to see you as well. And where are we up to now? Chris Stone as well in the house. Great to see you too. Bill, Ian, great to see you all here. Hey, Julie. Hey from India, great to see you here as well. And we've got DJ Rob and Mark in the house as well. It is amazing. Never ceases to amaze me that we can just sort of connect around the world like this. It's from wherever you are. I'm in the northeast of Thailand. Hey, Orbs, great to see you here as well. And Christopher, great to see you here as well. So let's get started. This is day 2 of the no editing required workshop, the Ecamm one take method. My name, in case you missed it yesterday, is Alec Johnson. I'm the founder of Take One Tech and the Digital Stage Academy. And the Take One Tech comes from making all of my videos for YouTube originally in one take with no edits. Well, I still do it that way, actually. So I say originally, but I still do it that way. But that's where the name came from. So that's what we're here for, is to sort of share that process of how you can really use Ecamm to dramatically increase the speed with which you can create content and reduce the friction a huge amount. I mean, friction for me is my own worst enemy. You know, any sort of roadblock that's in the way of me actually doing something is really going to slow me down. It's kind of embarrassing how I'm affected by things like that. So being able to just record videos in one take and not have to worry about editing has been, as I said yesterday, a total game changer. So let's just go through the agenda and just have a recap of what's coming up the next couple of days. Obviously, yesterday we were talking about just the idea of making your videos in one take with no edits, talking about why you might want to do that. I gave a sort of bit of an introduction to Ecamm. One of the comments, as I went reading back through all the comments, because I wasn't seeing them all sort of live yesterday, I was just looking at the questions, but when I went back through and read all the comments, somebody mentioned that although they suspensed, this is supposed to be you know, a sort of beginner's session, they felt a little bit overwhelmed by some of the tech that we were talking about a little bit later on. So I'm going to try and address that today, because basically, if anybody asks a question, I'm a kind of open book, so I'll always try and answer questions. And there were a few questions that came in a little bit later that were kind of technical. And so I suppose yesterday was really more of the sort of foundations and groundwork of, you know, this idea of creating videos in one take. And we talked about the idea that, you know, understanding that you are now officially a live producer, and live production is nothing more than just maybe pressing a couple of buttons to switch between one camera and another, or a screen share or whatever. So that's what we talked about yesterday, and that it was really sort of foundational yesterday. Today, though, we are going to be focused more on diving deeper into creating scenes, creating your flow and everything like that, as we will talk about in a moment. So to the person, and apologies, I forget the name now, now that I've just talked about it, but the person that was saying that maybe it was a little bit overwhelming yesterday, hopefully today should flow a lot smoother. But do feel free to ask any questions that you've got on anything, and I will get through to them all later on as well. So today we are focused on building out your scene system. Tomorrow we'll talk about recording and sort of best practices for how to structure things in that respect. And then on Friday we're going to have a live Q&A on Zoom. Obviously, this is on YouTube. If you want to get access to the Q&A, though, definitely go and register at ecamm.com/onetake. That will give you access to some resources that have been shared out as well, one of which I'll talk about today. That rule of thirds template that I showed yesterday, talking about camera positioning, that was shared out in an email today for those that are registered. And there's another one that we're going to talk about today, the scene layout template, which was also sent out. So do go ahead and register for that. So coming back today, then, let's talk about the agenda that we've got. First of all, I will go in more depth into scenes. So yesterday I talked about the sort of three core foundations, the profiles, scenes, and overlays. Those are kind of like the building blocks, if you like, of all that you are doing with Ecamm. So today we're going to be really focused in on, building out your whole scene system. So we'll go a bit deeper onto scenes, and then specifically screen sharing, talking about incorporating presentations into Ecamm as well. And then I'll introduce you to the idea of embedding video into your productions too. And then there will obviously be finally a day 2 challenge as well. So let's start off then with talking about the scene structure and design. And once again, just feel free to go through and drop in any questions as we go through. I'll try and keep an eye on the general chat because I know some people were sort of missing the Q colon or perhaps didn't format it correctly. Just quickly, I will just cover this one. If Robert registered days ago and no templates, there was an email that went out just today, I think, a couple of hours ago or a few hours ago, and at the bottom of that email you'll see that there is a link to download the 2 templates. So it would have been in today's email that went out, and apologies, that's on me. I hadn't sent them over to Katie until yesterday after the session, so apologies for that, but you will have them today in today's email. So let's get back to it then, and talking about scenes. What I'm going to do is talk about the sort of process of building scenes out. And yesterday, what you might have seen is as I was sort of sharing things with you, I was sharing this window here. I talked about the Ecamm Live windows and how there's certain windows that we can just sort of close down, but I am going to leave everything like this for now because what this has is obviously this is called the Ecamm Live main window. So if ever I refer to the main window, that's this one. All of these other windows that you see on screen are technically called utility windows. And so we've got the scenes window here that's got all of the different scenes. We've got overlays here. I've got the sound levels. As I mentioned yesterday, it's good practice to keep at least that one open all the time so that you can just get a visual cue that your audio is going through so that you don't post an entire video with no sound like I did to YouTube when I was starting out. And then I'm going to keep the camera switcher here because we're going to use this to add cameras into the scene. And I've also got a Finder window here, which has got a few assets that I'll be using a little bit later on. So just to recap quickly then, what scenes are. Scenes are these different views that you've got, if you like, in the way that you present things. So here we've got my main camera. So this is the main scene that I'm usually on. Another scene then would be a different camera angle, maybe another different camera angle over the other side. So those are individual scenes. Another one would be a screen sharing scene. So this one where I'm sharing a browser window, that as well is another screen share scene, and that's another scene that we've got. So there you can see in this window here, we've got a whole series of scenes, and I can just sort of click on here to switch between them and go through sort of one by one or however I want to do that. So I'm just going to go back to my main scene now, and I'm actually just going to hide these all away because I want to start off with where you may well be starting off, which is thinking about what is the content that you are going to be creating. It's all about creating videos in one take. There is live streaming, the Zoom, and all these other things that we can do with Ecamm, but the purpose of this particular workshop is to just sort of focus on the recording video. So what is the content that you are recording? It could well be that you are recording just a talking head video, maybe a couple of camera angles or something like that. Maybe you are doing technical demonstration. So, I've done tech tutorials for a few years now. So those are where it's my camera and I want a screen share, maybe multiple different applications that I want to share or multiple different parts of the screen that I want to share. We'll talk about screen sharing later on. It could well be, though, that you are running some sort of maybe a podcast and you want to record the podcast, and so you need a scene with you and a guest in, or it could be that you are recording some sort of promotional material or course content, and so you want to bring in maybe a slide deck or something like that. So there are lots of different ways that you might want to be creating content. It's not for me to say the scenes that you're going to need, but hopefully today we'll cover off a few of those different options. But one of the things that you would need to do though is think about, what are the scenes that you are going to require, and start to plan those out. It's easy to get carried away though. I've seen people's setups in Ecamm where they've just started using it and then they're building out 50 different scenes to cover every possible eventuality. There is really a huge benefit to starting simple and just adding things in bit by bit, because what happens then is as you start getting used to the live production side of things, which is where you are actually controlling the scenes, be it with a Stream Deck, which we'll talk about later and more in depth tomorrow, in fact. That is, just to clarify, the Stream Deck is this device that I've got on my desk here where I've got buttons that I can use to switch between my scenes. So if I press this button here, for example, it will take me straight back to my camera at the front. So the thing is though, if you've got 50 scenes and then suddenly you've got a Stream Deck or 2 Stream Decks with 50 buttons, you've got to remember where all of those are. So it's important to build this muscle memory where you get used to actually using these things. So starting off though, thinking about the scenes that you're going to build out, that's kind of the first step. So let's just go back though to here and we can start to think about those things. If I share my screen, at the moment I'm still in my main scene. I'm just going to create a completely new scene though down at the bottom. So you've got here new empty scene. Now, what I'm also going to do is I'm going to turn off some of these images that I've got going on in the background, which is giving it this sort of look and feel, because I want to talk about that separately as well. So I'm just going to create a completely new scene. And now you can see that the screen is completely black and there's nothing in it. Now, I mentioned yesterday that the default behavior of Ecamm is that it is actually always going to put your camera in first of all. So when you start up Ecamm, it doesn't start with a blank screen, it starts with your camera. And this is what's known as the camera being the scene source. So that means that the camera is basically filling the screen. The other option here you have is screen share, taking over the full screen. If I click that, it would just put one of my desktops up on there. And then we've got video, which I'll come to a bit later on as well. I actually don't use this method though. I'd rather start with a completely blank canvas and just add on certain things, because sometimes I don't want my camera taking over the whole screen. And in fact, if you think about that previous screen, we had like a little bit of a border and things like that around it. So although this is the default behavior, I recommend going into the settings of Ecamm. And then if you go into, where is it? Into video, you've got the default scene source there. And what you'll see is it says, it will say camera to begin with. But if you change that to blank, then that means that every time you create a new scene, rather than it having the camera in, it's just going to be a completely blank canvas. And now we're free to add in the elements that we want. So that is overlays. So we talked yesterday about overlays being the sort of the elements that you have within each scene, and that we add in from this overlays window over on the right hand side. And the types of overlays that we can add are we can add a camera, we can add text, we can add screen share. There's widgets, which I won't really cover today actually. We can add timers and things like that. We can add shapes if we want to add some sort of element of graphic design, and we can also add images or animated images, so like little videos, for example, if you've got some sort of animated call to action or something like that. For the time being though, I'm going to just add a new camera overlay by clicking on this, and you can see how it's just added my camera in straight away, and I can move that round. It will default to the whatever the default camera is. And I can change this to camera A. I talked yesterday about the camera switcher having this where you've got all the different sources. There is this concept though of placeholder cameras, and the reason why this is useful to use, rather than actually saying, okay, I want this to be whichever one of these things it is, like the OBSBot or whatever, the reason why it's better to use placeholder cameras is because if I use the camera switcher down here, and you can see we've got camera A, camera B, camera C. What it means is if ever you want to either share this profile out with someone or these scenes out, then they can just basically go in and change the camera assigned to placeholder A, for example, and then it will just propagate through all of your scenes. Or if ever you are working in a different setup and then you've got a different camera plugged in, rather than having to go through and update every single camera, every single scene with the camera that you're using, you basically just go and say, okay, from now on, camera A is, whichever one it is, and then it's going to, as I say, propagate through all of the scenes. But this is why Ecamm's so great, is because you can just simply drag and drop things where you want. So from a design perspective, it's really easy to just sort of build out scenes. Somebody was asking yesterday about hardware camera switches and would you use those with Ecamm? And the fact is they're both doing the same job effectively. And so you wouldn't really tend to use a hardware camera switcher with Ecamm because they're doing the same thing. But one thing, if you've ever come from using something like the ATEM Mini, for example, and being used to the process for building out scenes in there, you'll know that it's vastly more complicated to do that, or at least not necessarily complicated, but it's cumbersome. It's time consuming. Whereas here, as you can see, I can simply just drag and drop things around. I can move them where I want them to get the camera in place. If I was doing something like a podcast where I've got guests, then we can change the shape of these cameras as well. If I click on the little pencil icon here, it's going to bring up the settings. At the moment, it's set to widescreen, 16:9. But I could just make this custom if I wanted. And that would allow me to drag it into any shape. It's always going to preserve like the center line. So dragging this, you can see how it's keeping me centered as much as possible in the screen. And then I could literally just drag this over here. And then if I hold down Option, it's going to duplicate it. So now I can duplicate it like that. And if I had got somebody coming in through Zoom, for example, which we're not really going to cover here, but we can bring people in from a Zoom call using Ecamm for Zoom or Ecamm's interview mode. And in here, as well as camera placeholders for our own cameras, we've also got these ones here, placeholder cameras for guest 1 to 10. So you can have up to 10 guests coming in remotely using Zoom or interview mode. So if I was to select this as guest 1, for example, then there we go. I've just created a scene that's basically got me on one side and the guest on the other, and we could be bringing them in from Zoom. So that's how easy it is to just sort of move things around and place them. The other thing to note in here is we have got some control over the borders and styling and so on of the overlay. So if I click on the little pencil icon here, then we've got border width, so we can change the border around them. We've got the corner radius. You can even have a corner radius on just some of the corners rather than all of them if you want. So you can add some styling. There are also some changes you can make with the border. So rather than just being a solid color, you can change it to have a gradient. And as you can see there, it's sort of fading from one color to the other. And you can change the angle of that and change the two colors. And you can also go in and add motion. And motion basically takes those two colors, and instead of being in a particular sort of direction, if I turn on motion, you'll see that sort of gradient is just going to go subtly around the edge. So if you want to add that effect, you can. Personally, I tend to keep all of my borders pretty simple and usually just white. And the reason for that is because, as I'll talk about a bit later, I tend to, rather than use multiple different profiles now, I tend to just have one profile, but I switch out the sort of background image to change the look of it. And so therefore, a sort of simple white border will tend to go with whatever image I'm using in the background. But that's not to say you've got to do it like that. That's just how I personally do it. But here you can see we've made some changes to the borders, and I've managed to make it almost back to how the other one was. But if I just put that to there, you can see how we've got a different style on here to this one. And in fact, let me just go through and change that color just for a second, because you'll be able to see this more. If ever you've got an overlay in Ecamm and you want to apply that to something else, you can just right click on the overlay here and select copy. And then if I go to the other overlay and right click on that, I can go to paste settings, and you'll see that it's basically just going to apply that exact same border settings to that overlay. Now, at the moment, we're just talking about camera overlays, but we do also have, as I mentioned, screen shares and shapes and videos and things like that. Well, you can apply borders to all of those as well, and you can do the same thing and copy things across from one to the other. I mentioned yesterday with the camera switcher, if you do want to switch out which camera is assigned to any of these placeholder cameras, you can also just simply drag and drop from the camera switcher and drop it over the top of the overlay, and that will then just immediately replace that. So that's kind of like a quick way to replace those. You can also do the same thing if you drag and drop an overlay, a camera onto the scene, but not over a particular overlay. Dragging that on is actually going to add it as a completely new overlay like that. So that's how easy it is to sort of move things around just simply with drag and drop. Let me just change this gradient back to just solid white, and I'll do the same on this one. So I'm talking here about the process of adding in these overlays, but we're coming back to this idea of thinking about the scenes that you want to have. And what I'm also going to do is just get rid of that second one there. By the way, when you add a new scene, when you add a new overlay in, it will tend to adopt whatever the previous settings are of the last overlay that you've edited. So here, this one's got this round corner. So if I was to add another camera in, then you'll see how that's now just adopted that new style. So it will sort of carry forward to the subsequent things that you add in. So let's see, when you want to create things. Let me just double check if I'm not missing anything in the questions. I'll come back after I've just wrapped up this section, and then we'll get to the questions. So at the moment, I've just got a single camera in there. Obviously, you might want to have a camera as one of your scenes. I'm guessing that's going to feature as one of those scenes. You'll see that there are some alignment tools in Ecamm. So, for example, here you can see there's those blue sort of lines on the center line. If you have got multiple cameras in here or multiple overlays, they do also snap to like the top there. So there's a little line showing you when it's aligned to the top, or if it was aligned to this side or aligned to the center of each other. So they do snap in that way as well. Now, when it comes to laying out your overlays, apart from those sort of guidelines, there aren't any tools here to sort of automatically size them. Or, if you think about things like Photoshop or Keynote or PowerPoint, you can do things like, distribute evenly. There's that particular tool, or you can make things, all the same height just with a single click. So because there isn't a sort of feature to do that at the moment built in, it's useful, I found, to have a template that you can use to add in the things all nicely aligned. Now, I created a template, and it kind of works for me, and this is one of the ones that went out in the email earlier. And if anybody, I noticed somebody saying they didn't get the email. I saw it come into my inbox, but maybe somebody can get it to you. But the template that I have that's been sent out is this one, and it's called, in the same way that we had the rule of thirds template yesterday, this one is called the scene layout template. If I can find it somewhere. Where has it gone? It's there. And all I'm going to do is take this image, and I'm actually going to drop it into the overlays right at the very top. So when you want to add an image or a video file or whatever into Ecamm, you can either drag and drop it over the scene itself, or you can drop it into the actual overlays window and drop it exactly where you want it. So I'm going to put this right at the top because I want to be able to see it above everything else. Now, the way that overlays work in Ecamm is they're basically in a stack. So anything that is at the top of the list is going to be at the top of the pile, if you like. Imagine them sort of stacked up on top of the scene. And anything that's at the bottom is going to be further down. And so that means that if you were to sort of hover over here and just click to want to move the camera, for example, there is now this scene layout template in front of it. And if I just move like this, if I put my mouse over the scene layout template, it'd be easy to sort of drag that. So what you need to do is actually just lock the scene layout template, and now that's going to not be able to move, and I'll be free to move the things that are behind it. The other thing to note is with overlays, you've got these three areas. So showing current scene, and showing all scenes. Showing all scenes hopefully is self-explanatory. It means that any scene you're going to be able to see that in, and so that's why I've put the scene layout template in there, so that whichever scene I'm building out, I can just toggle it on and off to be able to help with my my alignment. And I'll explain how the alignment works on it in a moment. It looks like a mess of lines, I'm sure, at the moment. And then we've got show in current scene. These are all the overlays that we've got in there. And I'm just going to delete that because those are the ones that I was just adding in for demonstration purposes earlier. And then we've got the background section, which I'll come to in a moment. But if we just toggle on the scene layout template, now you can see that the way that this is working, if I just take my camera off, I've basically split the scene up into quarters and thirds. So we've got these lines here, the white lines. You can see that I've got sort of 2 that are going along the middle, 2 on the top quarter and the bottom quarter, and the same on the vertical plane. And the reason why it's not just a single line, why there's that gap, is because when I'm adding overlays, I want to leave a little gap between camera overlays, for example. And I've done the same with the vertical and horizontal with these red lines, which are thirds. And I guess technically that is a 6th there, and that would be the middle again. But what that means is if I want to sort of align things, this makes it easy for me. Let's say I'm doing a podcast with 3 people on it. Then maybe I can just sort of align this over here, and we'll bring this to this little red line over there. So now you can see that this is taking up the sort of left third. But now when I hold down the Option key and drag and drop, it means that I've now got everything all nicely lined up without having to sort of fiddle about trying to get everything exactly the right size. What I might do is I might want to have a space for comments or a title or something down at the bottom. So, this allows you to leave a little bit of space for that. So if we want to have, some sort of lower third that's going down there, I can use this again to say, right, well, we'll have the top 3/4 is where the cameras are going, and we've still got 3 of them. So it's using, thirds of the width. It just makes it really easy to actually build out the scenes. And then of course, once you've finished, you can just turn the scene layout template off, and now you've got everything positioned. I think I didn't quite actually position them in the right place, but they're more or less right. There we go. My OCD is going to get me otherwise. So they're not all nicely aligned. So yeah, that's just a nice way to be able to lay things out. We'll use that a little bit later when we look at some of the other scenes that you might want to create as well. So at the moment, what we're focused on is we're just talking about the sort of actual layouts of what you're going to have. So let's just start giving these a name. I'm going to call this 3 up, so 3 people. We might want to have another one that is just 2 people. So let me just come down here, and I'm going to assume that one of the videos that you might be recording is let's say a podcast with multiple guests. And so you can see here that we've got that 3 up one that I just created. You can create a new scene, but if you're using something that you've created already, you can hit this button down here to duplicate. So what I'm going to do is just take one of those off. I'm going to put the scene layout template on. If you hold down the Shift key while you're moving things, it will lock it in a plane. So if you hold down Shift and you just want to move that to the side, it's not going to move up and down. So that's just a handy little thing to keep something out on the same plane. And then let's just bring this one across. Obviously, I wouldn't have 2 of me. I would click here to change the, from camera A to, guest 1 or guest 2 or whatever. Likewise on that other one, if I change this to up. So I've just now got my 3 up here, and this would be guest number 2, and the other one would be guest number 1, let's say. Like that, and then we will go to just create a scene that's basically just got just the camera as well. So this is the one where we had the scene source as the camera, and remember I said I don't use that personally. So what we can do here is go to where it says source, and we can change that to blank. And so now we've got a blank scene once again, and I can just drop my camera A on there, and now I can just make it the size that I want it to potentially fill that space, just like this. Whoops, changing the actual size of the thing there. And so now that camera is filling the space like that. And then take the scene layout template off. So you can see here that now we've suddenly got 3 scenes for 2 and 3 people, and we've got the sort of elements that are in the correct place. Now we're going to get on to screen sharing and bringing in presentations and videos and things like that. But at the moment, we've basically just got the framework, but there's no sort of styling to it apart from the very minimal styling that we did of adding a border to the actual cameras themselves. Now, this is where I mentioned about the idea of rather than using the scene source of a camera, using an overlay, because it gives us this whole background that we can work with to add a style to everything. So what I'm going to do is just delete everything that I've got in the background at the moment, because I just want to show you how easy this is. If you have got some brand colors, or you've got a background, let's say, that you use for a slide deck or something like that, you can still find these things. If you've got certain colors, you can just go onto stock image sites like Adobe Stock or Unsplash or things like that. But if you take an image, and I'm going to go to the images that were from the wonderful Marshall Fox, who had created a load of graphics for this this course. So what I've got is a series of images here that are basically 16:9 images. So like this one, for example. So that looks like a nice background that we could use for our scene. And so all we do is take the image and just drag it over to the overlays. And if you just hover underneath where it says show in background, you'll see that blue line appear. If you're too far down, there's no line appears. So just make sure you just hover just underneath where it says show in background, and when you drop that in, magically that is going to appear in the background of your slide. So now you can see how we've got that style going on in the background of the scene. And if I just sort of come off here, you can see what that looks like out of live demo mode. But because it is shown in the background, this is also in the background of every other every other scene as well. So now suddenly, with just that one single move, third time lucky, you can basically just now have a show effectively that has got a sort of consistent look across all of it. So let's just call this one main. I'll call it camera 1, because I've got another scene called main somewhere else. Camera 1. Perhaps we could just be adventurous and imagine that you might have a second camera. By the way, if you've got a webcam or a built-in camera on your laptop or whatever it is you're using, it's very easy to add in an iPhone as a second camera if you do want to add in another camera. But what I would do here to add in camera 2 is I'm just going to click this little duplicate button. It's going to duplicate that scene, and so now I'm going to call this one camera 2, and then I'll just pick one of these other cameras that I have. So let's drop this one in. And so now we've got our scenes with basically 4 different camera angles, and we've also got one with 2 guests. So those may well be a couple of scenes that you need, but you can see how easy it is to just create those. I'm going to start talking about the screen sharing and presentations in general and things like that in a moment. But I want to talk for a little bit about 2 different approaches to switching scenes. So when I record my videos, I've basically got a collection of scenes that I use, as I'm just demonstrating now, a main camera, a couple of other cameras, screen share and things like that. And then I've got buttons on my Stream Deck that correspond to those, and I'm kind of just flicking back and forth as and when I need to change those scenes. So if I want to share my web browser, for example, I just press a button and it's going to take me straight to the web browser, press another button and it's going to take me straight back. So I like that sort of fluidity that comes with I'm just delivering the content or recording the content, and then as and when I need to switch scenes, I'm going to switch back and forth to those. I didn't realize until using Ecamm for a couple of years and working with consultation clients that some people's brains don't work like mine do. I don't know why that should have come as a surprise to me because I'm quite odd in many respects. But some people prefer a more sequential approach to it. So let's say you are recording a podcast and you know that you're going to have your intro. So you're going to come on first, and then maybe you're going to bring on your guest and introduce your guest. Maybe they're going to have a little solo spot, and then it's going to come back to you again, and then it's going to be you and your guest. You might well have like a fully worked out run of show, which is highly recommended in any case. But you would rather than sort of having to switch back and forth between specific scenes, it might be more logical to you to have a sort of sequential run of show, and you're just basically going to go next scene, next scene, next scene, even if that means that you've got some scenes that are technically duplicated in there. Well, you can totally do that as well. We'll come to Stream Deck later and more in depth tomorrow. But rather than switching a scene, you can just sort of advance to the next scene in the same way that you can do, slides in a slide deck. So I just thought it'd be worth mentioning that though. If I just come back to the demo mode and just show you what I mean there. So just take that example, for example, if you take a look at here, we've got camera 1, camera 2, and then the 2 up. So let's just say that we are going to be doing an interview show, and I'll just move this one out of the way for the moment. We'll put camera 1 up at the top. We will put the 2 up, so that's me and the guest up here, and let's just do this really simply. Say, well, then after that I want to go back to me again. Well, what you could do is you could just duplicate this camera 1. So I'm going to duplicate, and now it says copy of camera 1, and then we could put that down there. And so now what I can do is I can be on camera 1, and if I was on my Stream Deck, I could just basically press next scene. It's going to bring me to the guest scene, and then next scene is going to take me back to me, and so on. So you get the idea. It can be just, you know, a sequential thing, and you could almost think of them as if they are sort of slides in a slide deck. So that's just something to be aware of. There are 2 different ways of working with scenes. So I'm going to come on now to talking about screen shares, but before I do want to make sure I don't miss the comments and questions. So I will just go back. I'm just going to do a search for the Q colon because I noticed we've had quite a lot of messages, so I want to make sure I get them. So let me just come to this scene for a second. The link to the rule of thirds template goes to a blank screen. I'm assuming white on white lines. How do we download that? The link to the template. Oh, I see. So when you're clicking in the email, yeah. So the rule of thirds template looks like this. So yeah, it may well. Oops. This one. So it may well be that just in the browser it's appearing that way, but you should still be able to sort of right click and download it that way. Will we be learning the transitions between scenes? Yeah, I will certainly mention those. Actually, yes. It's I'll in fact, why not I do it right now? Because what you'll notice is as I'm flicking back and forth between this scene, for example, and this one, you can see how my camera is sort of moving to fill the space, and it's flicking back again. And if I go to a screen share, it sort of animates up to the top corner and then animates back down again. That's a relatively new feature that was added into Ecamm. And it's called live motion, and I'll show you where to find that in the Ecamm settings. So if you go into the settings by clicking on the little cog icon down here, there is this transition here, and so you've got like typical things that you would see on video, cross dissolve, and so on. Well, there's one here called live motion, and that's basically going to take anything that you've got in the screen in this particular scene, and then wherever it is in the next scene, if it's visible in there, it's just going to automatically do that animation. So it's a really nice little touch that makes it really easy to just add a little bit of interest by sort of animating elements around on the screen. So that's called live motion. Now, it was added in the sort of last major release of Ecamm. And if you had scenes that were already set up before then, all you need to do is just do that thing of going into the settings and then change the default transition. So it wouldn't have changed it for you automatically, but if you've got old scenes set up prior to that, if you're just coming back to Ecamm, then you can just come in and change it to live motion, and it will add in all of those transitions for you. So that's that one. The large screen, it is actually a monitor. Yeah, it's a Philips Philips 43-inch monitor. So it's this one here. So yeah, I've got my this is my monitor that I use during the day for my main work, but it's also what I use for screen sharing. And what I like about it is it allows me to have, as we'll talk about next, actually with screen sharing, I've basically got 6 different areas of the screen. I kind of split it up into top, middle, top right, top left, and so on, and the same for the bottom. So then it means that whatever it is I'm sharing, I can sort of have it positioned on the monitor and just look at a glance and know what I've got to share, and it gives me a lot of screen real estate to work with. Is there a way to change the color or transparency of the utility windows? Not the utility windows themselves, so that is these things here. I don't believe there's a way to change the transparency of the window itself. No, apart from just whatever the desktop cover color is behind it. But apart from that, no. So let's see where we're up to. Roberto, having issues with the email. I'm sure somebody will get you squared away with that. If you are using your prompter just for the video feed, where do you put your script for what information you share during the workshop? So I don't have a script as such. What I do have is just some bullet points down below. So if I come to this one here, I've basically just down here, my teleprompter's up there. Down here, I've got 3 columns. One of them is the YouTube comments from YouTube popped out so that I've got that in a separate window. I've then got the Ecamm comments window. This is where I'm literally clicking to pull the comments up. The reason why I like to have the YouTube one open as well, rather than just having it purely in Ecamm, is because, well, I can post as myself in there rather than as Ecamm in this one. But also there's a bit of a delay with the stuff coming into Ecamm. So sometimes I'll see the thing come in on YouTube before technically I see it come into to Ecamm. And then I've just got some bullet points. But my bullet points are very short. So, you know, the whole thing is basically just a few lines. so I don't have, you know, heavily scripted things, and I don't use the teleprompter for prompted scripts. It's one of the things that I'm going to talk about tomorrow about, you know, actually when you are recording, some of the barriers that we face in terms of, you know, showing up and being authentic and confident. And it's all about basically just essentially not trying to perform confidence, as I mentioned yesterday, and just sort of being yourself. I found personally, whenever I tried to script things, that it really didn't sound like me at all. So although I do tend to occasionally stumble over my words, as you've probably gathered, it's just me at the end of the day. So that's my view on that. So I don't tend to have really scripted things at all. So let's have a look. How do you get on the email list? So that is just go to ecamm.com/onetake, I beg your pardon, and sign up there, and that will that's how you'll get access also to the Friday workshop as well. If someone else started a meeting with Zoom, Teams, or whatever, can you still use Ecamm when they hand over to me to screen share? Yes, essentially with Ecamm, you can either use Ecamm for Zoom to go into the meeting, and then all of the features that you have in Ecamm, I'm not going to go into Ecamm for Zoom specifically today, but basically what that enables you to do is you can pull out a person that's within the Zoom call and put them onto your screen. So where I created those couple of scenes just now, where we've got, you know, guest 1, guest 2, that could be a Zoom participant. Now, if you are not the actual host, then when you go in, you can request permission from them to access the video feeds, and without having a Zoom session open, it's a bit hard to show you this, but basically you have a Zoom window, and then there are these 3 little dots at the top. And if you were actually recording, if you were actually in a Zoom call rather, you'll see that there's this option here that says start capturing audio and video. And if you click on that, even if you're not the host or the co-host, it will request permission from the host, and they can grant it to you, and then you'll be able to pull out the participants into your feed. In terms of the other platforms, or just regular Zoom, if you are using the Ecamm Live virtual camera, which is in the output, you'll see virtual camera. Just click on install if it's not installed. Basically, then you will have in your camera list, you'll have Ecamm Live virtual cam will show up, and then essentially your entire production, whatever you're doing in Ecamm, will be going into Zoom, into your window. Or if you're in Teams or whatever, it will do it into there as well. So yes, even if somebody's else is in control, you can do that. Now, you mentioned hand over to me for screen share. I'm recommending that you would do the screen share through Ecamm itself, and so basically you're just still showing up with your camera. There was another entire workshop that I did, I guess probably about this time last year, maybe a bit later, called the Tools and Tech, Ecamm Live Tools and Tech workshop. And in that one, I talked about more in depth about more advanced presentation techniques, and also about using Ecamm with Ecamm for Zoom in more detail. So that would be another good resource to check up for that one. So let me just go through here. Does the number of scenes affect the bandwidth speed? Are they technical terms of the show? It's not going to affect the bandwidth. I mean, basically, you're broadcasting whatever's coming out of Ecamm. So the things that are going to affect or going to be reliant on bandwidth is things like the stream size. So whether you're streaming at 1080p or 4K, that's going to have an impact. If you're streaming to multiple destinations, then that's going to have an impact as well. But in terms of the recording, it's also going to affect the sort of processing power that's required. But the actual number of scenes, not so much. I mean, technically it'll affect the file size of the Ecamm profile or whatever, and there is a limit. I'm not going to say you can have infinite scenes and it's not going to affect your computer. For sure, if you've got hundreds and whatever, and they've got lots of embedded video, then yeah, that can slow down the machine, but it's not going to have a pronounced impact just on having a few more scenes or things like that. I wonder how you're putting the comment in your nice box. I tried to figure it out last night, but no luck. So this scene here, yeah, basically what I've got is, if I come over to here, and it's worth mentioning this, although you probably won't be doing this in a recording, it's just a little touch to show how you can build things up into Ecamm. So actually what I've got is I've got a comment here, and this is just a comment window. So some people say as well, like, how do you actually set this all up? If you're going live for the first time, how can you set something like this up when there's no comment come in? Well, you can go into the overlays menu at the top here, and what you'll see is there is one that is, where's it gone here? Add placeholder comment overlay. And if you add that in, it will add a comment onto your scene, and it's a comment overlay. So you can see how your comment is there showing current scene. And you can also then click on the little pencil icon, and then you can go to edit text. And when you edit the text, there are actually two parts to it. There's the name and there is the actual text. So you can go and change the color of those independently. As you can see, your name's in orange and the comment is in white there. And then you can also change like the avatar size and so on. But what you can see though is that there is no background on this. So if I click on the little pencil icon, there is no border. There is actually a fill on that, so there shouldn't be a fill on that. And there is I'll tell you what I did there. I clicked on the wrong thing. I was right. If I click on the actual comment on that one, there is no border and no background as well. So it is basically just completely transparent. And I've made it specifically large like that. There are a couple of different formats for text. So I've made this a text box rather than dynamic. So if it's dynamic text, it's basically just going to make the size of the box fit around the text. But this means it can change size and so on. So I've clicked on the little pencil icon there. And if I go back to the style, I've put a text box. And then that means that I can make this kind of quite large in the area there. And that means that your comment will just fill out that space. And if somebody puts a really long comment, it will just fill it out down there as well. But if it does get over that, which I don't think it would do just because of the text limit, it will shrink to fit eventually once it fills that space. So that is the first element, is that text box. The chat message box. And if I just hide that for a moment, then what else I've got is essentially a couple of text overlays. So I've got the quotes are 2 text overlays in orange, 2 text overlays in white, and then I've got a shape. So you also have shape overlays. If I drag this onto here or click that, you can see that this is a box, and you can style these shapes to be whatever color you want. You can change the color of the box. So this is just a shape. But what I've done is I've put the shape overlay with a little bit of opacity. So that is this one here, this rectangle. And what I did was with that particular overlay, I just went to the opacity. And in fact, actually, I didn't do it in here. I did it with the actual color itself. So the color fill, if I click on the color fill, you'll see that is this slightly transparent overlay. And then in terms of the angle, I might as well mention this as well, because you might get onto this with styling your overlays. You can add perspective. So this is where we can just sort of add perspective. And so I added perspective to the actual shape itself. I think it was about 55. There we go. And I did the same to the camera. And so that makes it look like we're kind of looking in. And it works well when you've got 2 people on a scene as well. So just sort of pointing slightly inwards. So that is how I made that that comment thing. I've got to say, if you want inspiration on how to use Ecamm Live to create really graphically rich experiences, there's a better guy to follow than me, and it's Paul Dixon. He does some amazing, and that's where I got inspiration from this from. Whenever there's new features coming out in Ecamm, Paul, if you just search for his name in the chat, he does graphic design. I think he does all the graphics for Live Streaming Pros and a couple of other people. But yeah, he always does a great job at creating things that just are really really nicely designed. So definitely follow him. Let me come back to the questions before I move on to screen sharing. Just conscious of time. Could be, I don't want to go into a 10-hour live stream, although I'll be happy to. Where am I up to now? Is it possible to turn live motion off for scenes? Yeah, you can actually. So where I showed you that here, the default scene transition is live motion, but actually on every scene, you've also got the options for the scene itself, and then you can go into transition there, and it's set to default. But if you want something else, you can choose one of the others, or you can have no transition. So yeah, it's totally optional as to on a scene by scene basis as well. You don't need to have it on for everything. I have a 4K camera. Would you recommend using 1080p to go live on YouTube or 4K? I mean, it's fine to. I stream in 1080, but you could equally go in 4K. So yeah, it would, especially for that where you probably want to have a maybe higher quality image for what you're showing. Then yeah, absolutely. Especially if you've got the bandwidth for it. If you know there's no issues, then yeah. And more people, by the way, are watching YouTube on TVs. So if people have got a big 4K TV, absolutely. One of the reasons why I don't is because I have actually got other different cameras coming in, and some of those are not at 4K, and it's just yeah, I didn't see the need on my side, but absolutely, yeah, go for it. The other good thing about 4K, by the way, is for repurposing. It makes it a lot better to if you're taking a slice down the middle, for example, of a video to make short form content, to repurpose it, then if you're taking a 1080p video and taking a slice down the middle, then it's not going to be a 1080p short form. It's going to be less than that. So yeah, absolutely. What kind of software are you using to collect and sort your ideas and script the videos? Really, whatever's working for you is the answer to that, because I'm always a little bit hesitant to say, oh, this is the tool to use, and there is no one particular tool. For a long time, I was using OmniFocus was my task manager of choice, and I used that for 15, 20 years, something like that. Recently, I've switched over to Notion, and so I'm using Notion to collect ideas, and if I've got an idea for a video, then it just gets dropped into there. For things like outlines, I'm doing those in there. So I personally am using Notion, but it's whatever's the easiest and the most frictionless for you. Really is the answer to that question. Okie dokie, let me move on then to the next component that I want to cover, which is we've talked about just setting up your scenes, and we've created those few different scenes there with a few different camera angles. But now I want to talk about effective screen sharing, and I will come back to the questions a little bit later on as well. In Ecamm, we've seen how you can easily just sort of add in an overlay for a camera. Well, it's exactly the same when it comes to screen sharing as well. So if I just switch back to my demo mode again, we've now got our scenes list. And so if I create a new scene, why don't I duplicate this one, because I do still want to have the camera on it, but I just want to be sharing the screen as well. So I'm going to click on that to duplicate, and now we've got a copy here, and I'm just going to call this screen share like that. And let's just move it down to the bottom. And now we want the camera. Let me not click on that finish button. By the way, there is a button on Stream Deck to hide the user interface. So if I click that, there is a keyboard shortcut for it as well, but I forget what it is. It's Command the tilde sign. But if I do that, then it's going to get all of those buttons out of the way. So if I press the button again, you'll see how all the UI elements come on it. They disappear when you move your mouse off it, by the way, but when your mouse is on it, they're all there. So I'm going to click the UI button to hide those, and then I'm not going to inadvertently end the stream as well. But here I'm just going to move this camera out of the way, and let's assume that I'm going to set up a screen share where I want to share something that's on my monitor. Now I've got a few things open on the monitor, and the screen sharing overlay option is just down here. So you can see that this one that looks like a little monitor with a little plus sign. So if I add on that one here, it's just defaulted to one of my monitors. Actually, this is my my notes. There you go. That's the extent of my notes for this session, and the chat. But if I click on the little pencil icon, at the moment it's taking my primary display, but I've got 5 displays technically that are connected, so I can pick between any one of those, or I can choose between any one of the applications that's open. So if I click on Safari, for example, then it's going to open up the Safari screen share, and for some reason that's not zoomed in. It's probably because of the way that I've got this this cropped over here. But it's going to zoom in on the particular app that you are sharing. Let me just see why that's doing that. Have I got something hanging off the... Oh, it's because I've got the YouTube chat open as well. That's why. It's getting thrown because I've got the YouTube chat open. And that's also Safari. So let me just share something different instead. That would be better. If I share Stream Deck, because that is also in a window on its own. So I'm going to come down here and share Stream Deck if I can. Is that not showing? Oh yeah, there it is. So let's try that one. That's one of my pedals. That's the wrong one. It's going to be there's 3 of them. It's going to be the 3rd one, I'm guessing. Yep, it is going to be the 3rd one. So I'll come in and share that. So there is my Stream Deck screen, which is on, or application, which is on one of the windows. So that's how easy it is to screen share. You can just literally add in the overlay, and you can share whichever app you want, and then you can position it wherever you want on the screen. And again, you could use the scene layout template if we wanted to make this a little bit neater and position it where we want it. Maybe move our camera over there. It's almost like it was made to fit there, wasn't it? Let's move that up there. The other thing that you can do with overlays, and I'll talk about it while we're here, is if you've got, logos or graphics or things like that that are going to add to the branding apart from that background, you can add those in as well. So here's one that was prepared earlier. We've got the logo for this this session, this event here. So I could drag and drop this onto the scene now, and you can see it's put the logo full screen there. But I'm just using the scroll wheel, by the way, to sort of zoom in and out. But then we could position this down at the bottom and even make it a little bit smaller like that. And so now we've got a scene which is sharing the Stream Deck application, and we've got the logo down on the bottom there. Now, having just shown you that that's how you can share an application, we talked about this yesterday because I use an application called Pro Mouse. That's this thing that you can see with the little blue halo around it here. And this allows me to sort of spotlight things on the screen. It allows me to zoom into different areas. And it's really useful for screen sharing if you are demoing stuff in your videos. But it's also great if you are, just on a Zoom call or something like that, and you're showing something, a spreadsheet or whatever it happens to be, and you just want to zoom into things. It's also great for me because across all these 5 monitors, I often find I'm losing my mouse. So it's kind of helpful to just illuminate it to me like that. But the point is, because we've just told Ecamm, and I'll drop a link to Pro Mouse in while I remember, by the way, because I have got a little shortcut. The thing is, though, because we've just told Ecamm that we want to share only the Stream Deck application and we don't want to share anything else, it's also not showing Pro Mouse. You're seeing it now because I'm in live demo mode, but if I move my mouse back over to my actual screen here, this is what people would see. So I'm seeing Pro Mouse, but you're only seeing my little mouse pointer. The other reason why I personally don't share specific apps is, imagine all the apps that you might want to share. You could have your Stream Deck, as I'm doing here, but maybe it is Safari, maybe you've got a Chrome browser, maybe you've got multiple Chrome browsers that you want to share, or multiple Safari windows. And then you get into this thing of, if you are telling Ecamm to share Safari, as just happened, I've got the main Safari window open, but I've also got the chat running in a Safari window as well. And so then it was trying to share both of them. There are lots of different things that you could potentially want to share. And so if you've got to go through and set up a scene dedicated to every single potential instance of application that you want to share, it comes back to this thing of muscle memory that I was talking about earlier. You want to be in a flow with this and be able to easily share, what you want to share at any given time. So my approach to this is, rather than sharing the entire desktop, rather than sharing a specific application, I am sharing the entire desktop, but then I crop in onto certain areas of it. And actually, it's really useful that my Stream Deck is up here, because we'll talk about this later on, but these are basically different camera angles. So my main camera is here. This is front left, front right, and the rear right over here. But you see these 6 buttons here. These correspond to scenes that are sharing, like this one here with the little white in the top left is, guess what? The top left of my screen, top middle, top right, bottom left, bottom middle, bottom right down here. So that means that I can just sort of glance at my main monitor and know that if I want to share the thing that is in the top left, for example, then I just press that button on my Stream Deck, and it happens to be here. If I just press that, there we go, and it is sharing that thing that is on my top left of the screen. And if I just go back to this view here, it's basically sharing that. So here is the way that I have that set up. This is actually my keynote that I use for the presentation at the moment. But basically, it's these 6 different areas of the screen. And what that means is I don't necessarily have to have a dedicated scene that is for Safari, because I can just put this up into this top corner and know that that is what is going to be shared. Now, you might say, well, how do you make sure that it's in exactly the right place? Because then what you could be in a situation of is you've got the thing like this. And if I go back to that screen share, as you can see, now this is in the wrong place. So that might seem like a little bit awkward to have to go and organize that and arrange it every time. Well, that's where there's another great piece of software that comes in, which is called Moom. And Moom is basically a window manager for your Mac. And so you can actually set up entire snapshots of your desktop, so that if you are in a particular work mode, for example, where you need all of your windows in a certain position, you can save that setup as a snapshot. And then when you press a keyboard shortcut or a Stream Deck key, it's going to put all of those windows in the exact same place. I use this with Ecamm because it does work with all of the Ecamm windows. So when I press one button, it's going to put all of my Ecamm windows, all those utility windows, in one particular place. But I have different configurations of Ecamm if I am recording, for example, versus if I am streaming, versus if I'm doing a workshop, or if I am on Zoom or whatever. So I've got about 4 or 5 different configurations of my Ecamm windows, and I use Moom, it's M-O-O-M, to basically, with the press of a button, put everything where I want it to be. But the other thing that Moom can do, though, is you can save specific spaces on your desktop, and then you can say that whatever application you're in, when you click the keyboard shortcut, it's going to move the window to that place. So what I mean by that is, if you look here, I've got my window. I'm just sort of moving it around on the screen for you here. This is the Safari window. Well, if now that is my active window, I've got 6 buttons on my Stream Deck here that correspond to those 6 different positions that I might want things. And if I just now press the button, you'll see how I can just instantly put it into any one of those 6 locations on the screen. So if somebody asks me a question about a particular app, or that I need an app for, I can just open the app, and instantly, wherever it opens up on the screen, I can just kind of throw it into the exact right position, so that then when I switch to that scene, it's going to be showing up there. So that is how I approach screen sharing. I'll leave you to do some digging into Moom. It is on the Ecamm Tools and Tech workshop from last year, which is on the Ecamm's YouTube as well. But I explain more about how to actually use Moom itself in that workshop. But that is how you can use this in conjunction with screen sharing. And again, this comes back to this idea of, if we go back to our scenes that we had, I'm just going to go into the demo mode again. So here is the, whoops, that's the wrong one, isn't it? There we go. Let's try and click on the right one. That would help. There we go. We're back into that screen share that I just created. And as I say, I don't recommend that we're using the sharing a specific app as such. And here I'm going to click on this pencil icon. And instead of sharing Stream Deck, what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to share the full display. Now, I'm guessing it's this one. There we go. I was right first time on that. Usually it's going to be the last one I try, so that's a bit unusual. But now you can see that I'm sharing my entire desktop. This thing down here is my live keynote, which I'll talk about in a moment as well. But now what I can do is with any overlay, if you hold down the Option key, then you can drag and drop the edge, or rather drag in the edge. So you can see that what that's doing is I'm sharing the whole desktop, but I'm just cropping into a certain area. So I just want to crop into that. Now that I've got the window positioned correctly, and again using Moom to get it into the right place, now I'm just going to hold down the Option key and crop up from the bottom, and then I'll also crop out that menu bar just up at the top, so I don't like to have the top of the Safari bar. And now that we've cropped, we can just drag and drop and resize it. So it's hold down the Option key for cropping, and then it is resizing using just the mouse to click and resize. So now we could put our scene overlay on again. Where's it gone? There. And then we could get this to the correct size that we want it, like that. And maybe make the camera a little bit larger or whatever to just get that nice and uniform. Now that we've got that aligned, we can take off the scene layout template. And so now we've got our screen share scene, we've got our camera, and you can see that because, oh, that's a bit of a weird zooming. And now because we've got this background image though, they've all got this same sort of style and aesthetic to them. And by the way, the thing about this is if ever you do want to change the lookup, or maybe you have got a different show that you're doing that requires a slightly different vibe to it, you can always come in and take any other image. Let's see, where's another example? And we can just drag on the background and drag and drop it into that background area. And now suddenly we've got a different look. It didn't quite work with that particular logo, but you get the idea. Now we can go through those scenes and we've got a completely different look to it. And as I mentioned yesterday, if you've got a video background, you can also add a video in there as well. So now we've got this as an example, or we can go back to this one. I think Marshall did a great little video in here as well. Somewhere there is a little video. Where's it gone? Maybe it's that one. No, I can't find it now. Anyway, you get the idea. I can't find the video file now, but never mind. It was in here somewhere. So that's how you can just basically change up the background though. So with screen sharing then, this is one of the things that might be useful to have. And when you are in a Zoom call, I mentioned this on, was it yesterday or was it on I've done a few workshops recently, I can't remember which one, but when you've been on a Zoom call before, I'm sure you've seen that kind of screen sharing dance that goes on when someone wants to share the screen, and then there's this thing where they're sort of looking around. Where's the screen share button? How do we, share the correct screen? And then they go to share their screen, and their window just sort of disappears down into the corner. Their camera feed, whilst they are, sharing their screen. This is a much more efficient way of sharing a screen, even on Zoom, because obviously it's just so easy to click between the two. So when it comes to screen share, you can flick into it, you can share the information. You're still very much front and center as well, rather than in that little Zoom window in the corner. And then you can always come back just with the touch of a Stream Deck button afterwards. One other thing I should mention about screen sharing while we're on here, it may be that you want to share a portion of the screen that has audio. Let's say you want to share a YouTube video or something like that. It's a bit meta, but sharing a YouTube video into YouTube. Maybe you're doing a reaction video or something like that, or you just want to show somebody something. So just one thing to note is when you come over to here, the overlay for the screen share, click on the little option here, and you can see there is an option here to activate system audio capture. Now it's actually blacked out here, and that also means there's another area to do this, which is in the audio section. You see here where it says capture system audio. So you want to go in here, and the default is actually going to be when sharing the screen. I'd turn that off because I use my my Rodecaster for audio routing. But here, so in the audio section of Ecamm Live preferences, capture system audio when sharing the screen. That's going to mean that when you're sharing the screen, the audio is also going to get passed into the production. So if I was to play a YouTube video in this browser window, you would see the system audio coming through in here. Now, if it is a screen share overlay, rather than the scene source being the screen share, you do also have to do that thing that I just mentioned, which is go into the overlay itself and make sure you've also activated system audio capture on there as well. And that will then allow the audio to come through. So with that said, that is about it for screen sharing. Let me just double check in with the comments before we move on to presentations, which is kind of an iteration of that, I guess, or sort of building on that. Let's see. What kind of... Oh, sorry. So here we are, this one. When you scroll through comments, you are clicking on each comment on and off, and do you have a Stream Deck program that allows you to scroll them? So what I'm doing is basically I'm just scrolling through the comment window. So here we've got the comments. If I go into the full comments, this is the full list of all the comments that just come in. But what I've done is I've clicked in here and I've typed in Q:. So it's now filtered down, searched for just those ones. So that's how I can see who's asking a question in here. And then I'm just sort of scrolling like this. And when I click on a comment, like this, it's putting it up onto the screen, and then I click on this one and it's putting that one up. And what I'm doing is, rather than take them down, there is a button on Stream Deck to remove the last comment, for example, or put on the next comment. I never use the put on the next comment because I'm usually way behind with them anyway. And as for removing them, rather than remove the comment, what I'm actually doing is just leaving them in this scene, so that then when I flick away from the scene, the comment's gone because it's not there. And when I flick back again, then the comment's still there. So that's useful if I want to talk about something else and come back to the comment later on rather. So that's that. Can we use that method for screen sharing next to camera A with a keynote presentation? So having said, I'll come on to presentations next, but basically having said that I never share the application, Keynote or PowerPoint or my presentations is the one exception to that, and I'll explain that next. So I'll have the answer for that in a moment. You've got Pro Mouse. How can you make the circle smaller? Let's see if I just open up this. So in your Pro Mouse preferences, and if I just go to my screen share, here we've got Pro Mouse, and if you go to the mouse halo, excuse me, if you go to the mouse halo, there is a halo size here, and that's going to change the size of the halo. So that's how, and then you can change the border thickness that you've got around it as well, and change the color and everything. Same with the zoom, you can change how much it zooms in, and then the spotlight. So the spotlight is this one, so you can change the color. So if I change the color in here to red, for example, now we've got a red color. Ever change it to blue, now we've got blue color. So you can customize it in that way. And then, yeah, the zoom one, you can just change how much it zooms in. So I've got mine zooming in to the maximum, basically. There are drawing tools in here, but I never use those because they're frankly useless. They don't work as well as another tool that I use called Video Pencil. So let me come back to this. What's the best way to show my iPad screen while I'm teaching so viewers can see what I'm writing in real time? It's literally just plug it into the computer. Now, although you would think it is a screen, so we want to have that as screen sharing, in actual fact, it will show up to Ecamm. If you just take the cable, plug it from the iPad into the computer, it's going to show up in the camera switcher. And I'm not going to do what I did yesterday because it kind of ended the stream or interrupted it. But I'll show you anyway. It's going to be the same as when you connect your phone. So in the all sources, here you can see it says Alex iPhone. If my iPad was plugged in, it would say iPad, and you just click to add it, and then it becomes a camera. And so you can add a camera overlay and just crop it, or sorry, adjust the size of it to be the same size as your iPad, and then that's how you can bring your iPad into the into Ecamm. So next question. You can use my ATEM Mini Pro with Ecamm. You can use the ATEM with Ecamm, and in fact, I've got, but I don't recommend it. Let me just preface that quickly. So what I've got on my desk here is, whoops, if the camera points in the right way, I've actually got the Rodecaster video because I'm testing that for some other purposes, and I've used it when I did the Digital Stage Summit, which was sponsored by Ecamm back in March. I was using the Rodecaster video for routing video between multiple computers. The trouble with using an external camera switcher like the ATEM or like the Rodecaster video, so here it is on the desk, you're only getting one camera feed out of this into Ecamm. So like this scene that I've got set up at the moment, is just basically whatever's coming out of the Rodecaster video. I am using it at the moment because I'm in the middle of doing some other project, which is irrelevant at the moment, but I have actually got some of my cameras running through it at the moment. But what you can see is I'm having to do the camera switching through this instead. So this is my top-down camera, this is my rear camera, this is my front camera. So I'm having to do the switching through this. Well, at that point, I've suddenly then kind of screwed up all of my scenes, because I might want a top-down shot, but then, for example, what about the scene which is my my screen share? Well, I wouldn't want to have my top-down camera where this is. I want that to be my main camera. So if this was all coming through the ATEM and all the cameras were coming in, it would mean I would potentially have a scene like this that's got the wrong camera in this place. So as soon as you start adding in a hardware camera switcher to the Ecamm, which is a software camera switcher, they're kind of duplicating each other to the point where they're kind of detrimental to each other in that respect. So unless you've just got a really simple scene setup where it's basically just one camera scene, and you want to use Ecamm for things like the comments and taking it into Zoom and pulling people out of Zoom, then fair enough. But if you want to have multiple cameras and do the switching, it's kind of better to be doing it within Ecamm itself. Let me see where we're up to. Did I understand you correctly that you have some sort of plugin that allows you to click around and control your browser through Ecamm main screen? No. So I was sharing my screen in Ecamm. So I'm sharing the screen. I'm not controlling the browser. There is a way that you can technically have a browser window in Ecamm and control it, and it's using what are called widget overlays. I don't necessarily want to get into those because that's another little rabbit hole, but basically you can do that where if you click on this icon here, you can click on new widget, and then I could put in any URL like my website, like that. And then, whoops, that's already the website. It's going to pull in my website like that. And so now technically I've got a website that is embedded into Ecamm as an overlay, and I can click this button here, which will allow me to interact with it. So now I'm actually interacting with my website. This is within overlay as a widget overlay. Now, some people like the idea of this. If you've got like a specific site or whatever that you want to go to or demonstrate, then fair enough. You could do that. Personally, I don't do this because it comes down to I don't want my scenes cluttered up with a different scene for every single site that I might want to visit. It makes far more sense to me just to have my 6 dedicated screen share scenes and then be able to easily just throw whatever I want into that position and click through it that way. So that's my approach to that. Let's just see where we're up to. Is the video feed in your prompter just your face, or is it the audience? So right now it's my output. So I'm seeing what you're seeing basically. And that's so that I can be sure that when I'm sharing my screen, or I think I'm sharing my screen, I am actually seeing it. If I'm doing a live event with like actual people in Zoom or whatever, then it would be, I'd want to see the gallery and be able to get the reactions from that way. How do we place the assets files window to show underneath the main screen? If you mean here, is that this thing down here? This is just this is my desktop, and I've got a Finder window down below. I don't know if I'm misunderstanding what you mean there, but that's just a Finder window on my main desktop. I might have completely misunderstood the point of that question. What do you suggest I use switching with Ecamm if I get rid of the ATEM? Basically, just multiple inputs for your cameras. So if you've got 4 cameras, you could get if you've got 1 or 2 cameras, you could get the Camlink 4K, for example, that goes into, takes the HDMI out and goes into your computer. You would need potentially to get, some sort of dock or hub, something like the CalDigit Element range of hubs, or CalDigit Element Hub. And then the CalDigit dock is a decent brand. And so then basically you've just got multiple of these HDMI to USB converters. If you've got 4 cameras specifically, or 3 or 4, then there is a more costly option, which is it's actually made by the same people who make the ATEM. It's called the Decklink Quad 4K, and that enables you to plug in up to 4 4K HDMI's from, potentially 4K cameras, and then you've just got one Thunderbolt cable that goes into your computer, and they show up as individual cameras. The reason why I say it's a bit costly is because I think the board itself is about $300 or $400, and then you need a separate enclosure for it, which is $200 or $300 or something like that. So yeah, it is a little bit more costly, but it basically gives you just like one Thunderbolt into the computer rather than having like multiple different connections. But that would be the way to do it. Oh, I see. So I've just read down, and that's the next thing. So yeah, if you've got 4 cameras, you might want to consider the Decklink Quad 4K. Where do you get all of these outputs from for all the monitors? So you want to look for a monitor, for a dock that has, it's called Display Link technology. And if I search for Display Link logo, it looks something like this. So you want to look for a dock and search for Display Link dock. It's specifically got this icon on it. And basically what you're referring to there is a limit on how many monitors you can drive from a Mac. So my MacBook, for example, technically can only drive 2 external monitors, and yet I've got like 4 or 5 including the prompter. That's because I'm using a Wavelink dock, WAVLINK, and it has Display Link technology, which means that it can drive multiple monitors. So if you've reached the limit of your Mac, then just look for that. Let's come down here. What overlay to use for sharing videos? Great question, and I will come on to that afterwards. So next up, let's move on, because I realize time is running away, and I do need to get on to the next 2 things, and I will come on to your question. First of all, though, we're going to talk about working with presentations, and then we'll start talking about the videos afterwards. So in terms of presentations, this could well form part of the content that you want to create. Maybe you are using this in YouTube and you want to incorporate slides or whatever in it, or maybe you're using it in presentations, or it's for sales videos or whatever it happens to be, and you want to bring in a presentation. So there are really, there's 2 ways of doing it, but I would say there's kind of 3 or 4 ways of doing it. First of all, if you've got a slide deck and it's just got slides, and you're not too worried about the like animations or transitions, a great way to bring a slide deck into Ecamm is actually just to export it as a PDF. And if you go into PowerPoint or Keynote and go to the export menu, you can export your slide deck entirely as a PDF. And so I have got one that I prepared earlier, fortunately. And if I go to, where is it? Over here. I'm going to create a new scene. Need to just share this with you. So down here, I'm going to take that screen share scene that we created before, and let's say that I want to kind of replicate this, but now we're going to use it for a presentation instead. So I'm going to go down and duplicate. It's a useful thing to do this if you've got other assets and whatever on the screen. It's a great way to just sort of duplicate things to keep things the same. Let's go to that, and I'm going to call this PDF presentation. The reason why this is good is because it means you're not actually having a presentation software running on your camera, so on your computer rather. So it's kind of reducing the load on it as well. I'm going to get rid of that screen share because we don't need that, and I could actually just completely delete it out of that scene. But now in here, I've got a PDF somewhere that I created as a little demonstration. It's just a random presentation. This one here. And if I just drag and drop the PDF onto the screen, as if by magic, there we go. It's taken up the full screen, but I can just slide my thing in and out. And what you'll see is this is a PDF of just some generic company information. But what you can see is over here in the overlays window, we've got this thing here, presentation demo. So I'll just call that presentation like that. And so now we've got a PDF overlay effectively. Some people don't realize you can do that because there is no overlay down here for PDFs. So you can see like animated overlay, time, things like that. And because it doesn't feature down there, I know that a couple of people I've spoken to have just been surprised that they didn't realize you could do it. You just literally drag it on there. And now you can see that we've got page 1 to 17, and I can just press the arrow button and I'm just cycling through those slides now. So you could do that exactly the same with the Stream Deck as well. There is a Ecamm plugin for Stream Deck that has a forward and backward button, and we can do the same styling things as well. So I can right click on this one, for example, and say copy. And then if I right click onto the PDF overlay and go paste settings, now you can see it's also put that border on there as well. Now maybe the slide deck needs to be a bit bigger, so we can maybe make myself a bit smaller, make this a little bit smaller, or even get it out of the way completely, and then make this the PDF more of the sort of main event. Perhaps we might even want to just put my camera over the top. So you'll see how my camera is now behind the slide deck. Well, we can just go and just adjust the order and move the camera above the presentation. So now we've got something that looks like that. So if I come out of demo mode, now you can see that we've got a nice little slide deck that's really simply and easily incorporated into the presentation like that, or into the production, I should say, just like that. So that's a really good lightweight way of doing it, and it means you don't have to have presentation software running as well. And if you are going to be, changing these out, and you've got a new presentation to give, well, a great way to do that is if you just come up to the little pencil icon. You'll see at the top here, it says replace asset. So if ever you want to change an image, a video, a PDF, then you can just click on here, and then I'd just be able to go and pick out a new PDF instead. So that means you can just have the scene set up ready to go. And then if ever you've got to drop a PDF in, you can just replace the asset with the new PDF, and then you are good to go. So that's just a really lightweight way of doing things. The other way, though, that you could do it is instead of a PDF presentation, if we just duplicate to this scene again, and now I'm just going to say Keynote, you can just simply do a screen share. Now, the reason why, and I've got the same presentation in Keynote itself, so if I just bring that up, the thing to do with Keynote itself, and let me just share this screen for a moment. I will get rid of the presentation, because we're going to use Keynote in here instead. And I'm going to do a screen share in a moment, but before we do that, I just want to show you a setting in Keynote itself. So I'm actually going to go to live demo mode for my other screen, and we will zoom in on this area. So here I've got Keynote with that same presentation actually, but just in Keynote. What you want to do is go up into the play menu, and instead of, say, play full screen, say play in window. The reason why I suggest doing that is because then it's not going to take over your full screen. And now when I press play on this presentation, hopefully, there we go, it's just playing it in a window rather than it taking over like the full screen effectively. So now what that means, though, is I can basically just go and share just that particular window. So let me just go ahead and do that. I'm back in Ecamm, so I'll come back over to here. And now I'm going to add a screen share overlay like this, and clicking on that. Instead of sharing my desktop, as I've told you that I don't share individual apps, this is the exception. I do it with Keynote because it's just going to nicely frame Keynote completely. So here you'll see it's just grabbed Keynote. It is 16:9 aspect ratio window, and so is Keynote. There is one default setting on Ecamm that you want to turn off, though. If you go into the settings, there is a default setting for screen sharing, which says add margin when zooming to an app or window. And what that does is it basically puts like an extra little border around, outside of the border that we've got on it, it leaves a little gap all the way around. Because we're just styling it ourselves, then we can just remove that. So I remove that margin, and now all it's going to do is have on that border that we specifically put on there. But now I'm running my Keynote presentation just as normal. So I can click, there's a button, either if you've got like a little presentation clicker or use the Stream Deck, we can just advance our slides just like this and go through them one by one like that. So that's how you can just incorporate Keynote into the presentation, or into the production, I should say, where you've still got your camera in there, but you've also got your slide deck. Now, I talk about this concept of immersive presentations, which is where you're kind of more incorporated into the presentation itself. Now, there's a couple of ways you could do that. It could just simply be, if we go back to the PDF, what I did with this PDF is I actually made it intentionally, if I just zoom in so that it fills the window, and let's just take off the border and the border radius, or not quite that large actually. Let me just zoom out. I'll try that again. Try that again and say it correctly. I still want to have my Ecamm border around the outside, but we could have like a space which is for our camera. And if you just design your slides so that there is always this space on this side, then you can sort of incorporate your video into the middle there, and so it looks a little bit more intentional. You're never covering up the content, but you're kind of like a part of it. So that's like the first easy way. And whether you do that as a PDF, I've got to get the positioning right so I'm not covering stuff up. Whether you do that in the PDF format or whether you do it with Keynote is up to you. That one obviously doesn't work there, but you get the idea. It just means that you're sort of more integrated into the presentation rather than it being sort of off to the side. There is another level of this though, which again is a little bit complicated to explain today, so I won't go into it. It is in that other Ecamm workshop though that I mentioned, but I'll just show you briefly. This is using the live motion feature in Keynote itself. And so if I just exit this presentation and go back to the other one, where has it gone? Over here. In fact, I think I need to come out of this for a second, come out of live demo mode. I'll get back to you in a second. Get back to this. What I've got down here now is this is the presentation that I've been using for the graphics that I've been sharing on screen. So you can see how I've got these day 1, day 2 graphics and so on. So this is all the stuff that I've been like delivering today whilst we've been on this this session. So I'm using the graphics and animations built into Keynote, and you can see that my video is actually already coming through Keynote here. And I won't go through this as a full demo because we just don't simply have time, but this is how I'm basically in Ecamm, I'm sharing Keynote, but the video is coming through Keynote first, if that doesn't sound a bit too convoluted. So this is the Keynote presentation with my video in it, and as I move through the slides and so on, it's building out these animations. So this is what you saw at the beginning. So all of those animations are being done in Keynote itself. The reason I do that is because I don't want to have a load of heavy animation going on in Ecamm for just like one session when that's more something to do with the sort of presentation. So all of these animations were happening in here. And then I simply had a scene in Ecamm. If we go back over to Ecamm now, I simply had a scene in Ecamm, which was a bit like this Keynote presentation one here is sharing Keynote. But instead of having my camera through Ecamm, I basically just made the whole Keynote presentation take up more of the screen. And now you'll see my video come through Keynote, and that's what's giving those animations and enabling me to create those animations. It's getting a little bit more technical, and we want to keep this a little bit more basic level for today. That is covered in the Ecamm Tools and Tech workshop, and there was also another workshop, Ecamm Advanced, as well. You can find them all on the Ecamm YouTube channel. So that is presentations, and when you incorporate presentations with Ecamm, you can essentially just add one more scene to your Ecamm list. So maybe as if we just go back and look at the scenes that we've got, I will just come back over here. Remember, we have our main camera. We've got one potentially with a couple of guests. We've got our screen share that's potentially sharing our browser window like that. Or whichever screen we want. And then we've got our PDF presentation one. I'm actually just going to say I can delete that because I'm going to use Keynote. And so now we've got a Keynote presentation scene. So we've still got a really lightweight scene list, but we can do some really impressive presentations because we're combining, or productions, because we're combining it with the presentation capabilities of a dedicated presentation software. And we've got a nice, simple scene list there. So the next thing then that you might want to do is add video and incorporate video into your production. So why might you want to do that? Well, maybe you want to have intros. So there might be some intro video that you want to play at the start of all of your videos, depending on what you're doing. I mean, if you're doing a YouTube video, you want to get straight on into it. But if you were doing some sort of corporate video, there might well be some intro title sequence or something like that. Also, similarly, you might want to have outros in there as well. Let me just come to the correct scene. Get rid of my my slides here. You might well have like an outro. So maybe there's closing credits or something like that. That could well be a video that is sort of pre-prepared instead, rather than something that you're doing live. The other thing about it is it might well be that you want to have B-roll. So I've done this previously when I've wanted to review products, for example, and so I've got some B-roll and I want to incorporate that into my my production. So how do we do that? Well, that is by dragging and dropping the video essentially onto Ecamm will make it the video the scene source. So I mentioned before about here we've got the camera as scene source, screen share, and I personally don't use either of those, but I do use this one, which is the video feature. Now, if I go to, let's say I want to do a review video of the Rodecaster Pro 2. It is a great companion to Ecamm, non-essential, but a great companion depending on what you're doing. So I've got in here a series of videos that are, like little spin arounds of the Rodecaster Pro 2, for example, showing you the connections. I've got another one here, which is, just some other B-roll. These are all very much kind of like B-roll style of things. So what I could do is I could create a series of little B-roll scenes if I wanted. And so what I might do here is say, well, let me create a new blank scene. And I'm going to take one of these videos. Let's say that one. It's a fairly short video, just showing some of the connectors. And I can just drag the video and drop it. And when I drag and drop it, it's going to make that video the scene source. I was just checking there because there's another setting that I should probably highlight right now before I go any further, which is if we go into the audio, there is a default which is on, and it says, or which is normally on, which says automatically mute microphone and guest audio during video playback. So the default behavior as Ecamm is if you create a scene that's got a video in it, then your audio muted like that. So I personally have that taken off, so I don't have myself muted, and then if I want to mute it on a given scene, I can do. But now what we've got is we've got a scene there, and I'm just going to call this RCP2 B-roll. And so what that means is I'm in my camera scene now, but whenever I go to that B-roll scene, then suddenly it's playing the video just like that. Now, wouldn't it be nice if when the B-roll had ended, it's going to go back to the main scene? Well, we've got this playhead here, and you can choose what happens. This one here means what happens when you go into the scene, and this means like what happens when the video plays. So here we can say, when it starts playing the video. So when you go into the scene and you start the scene, do you want to start playing the video from the beginning, which is the default, or from the last position? Now, what that means is, let's say you've got a little B-roll here, and you just want it to basically play. You're going to want it to start from the beginning when you go into that scene. But what if you've got like a 30-minute video and you want to drop in and out of it and do commentary and whatever? You might want it to start from the last played location, so you can sort of play it a little bit and then come back to it afterwards. The other option you've got then here is, what do you do when the video ends? Do you either loop it or do you go to the next scene? Now, you could potentially loop it and just keep on here for as long as you need to. But in my case, what I do with these B-roll things is I'll say go to the next scene. And that will mean that when that finishes playing, it automatically then goes to the next scene. Now, here is where I'm going to actually duplicate my cam number 1. I could put it just above cam number 1, but I'm just actually going to duplicate it because I want to have my B-roll all down here at the bottom. And there might be multiple instances of B-roll. But what you'll see is once it finishes, whoops, it's because it's at the very end. Hang on a second. I duplicated the wrong scene. I should have gone to here and duplicated my camera 1. I basically played 2 of them. Let me just move this down here. This one will work now, I promise. Delete that. So now if I go back to my B-roll again, I've now got my B-roll, and then I've got my copy of my main camera. So what that means is when the B-roll finishes, it's going to go back to my main camera. So now you can imagine that I'm talking about the Rodecaster Pro 2. I click the button to go onto the B-roll scene. You can hear me as it's showing, and I can talk about the different connectors that it's got on the back and the connectivity to your computer and so on. And then once the B-roll's played, it's going to come straight back. So this is actually really a great way of having a series of videos all queued up. They're all in a line with those like cams afterwards, and so you can just go through, have those assigned to Stream Deck, and then play the B-roll, and then it will come back to the main camera afterwards. So that's a great use case for playing video and actually embedding the video as part of your scene layout. And what you can do then is obviously we gave that scene a name, which was, Rodecaster B-roll or whatever. You could just call it B-roll 1, B-roll 2, B-roll 3, 4, 5, and so on. And maybe you've just got a Stream Deck button for 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. And then what you would do is on that scene, if we go back into the scene, and I'll just pause that for a minute, you can just go through and replace that video. So where we go to the scene source, where it says video file, I could just choose any video file from here, and then it would just switch it out. So having the scene name B-roll 1, 2, 3, and whatever, and then for the next video that you do where you want different B-roll, you can just go through and update each scene by changing the scene source and choosing the new video file that you want in there. So now we've got a series of scenes. We've got a couple of cameras, couple with guests in, we've got a screen share, and we've got a keynote presentation, or we could use it with the PDF instead. And then we've also got an example of using B-roll, and we could just go straight out to the end screen. Maybe we want like an outro or something like that, and we've got something like that made. You could also just drop that in exactly the same way. So that is video and embedding video into your scenes. With that, let me just come back to the questions. So where are we up to? Let's have a look. I've been scrolling too much. That's where we're up to, because it was just as we led into this. What overlay am I using to share videos? So there we go. That's the one. I'm sorry if you already answered this. Is your laptop there as a screen that you're pulling into Ecamm via your desktop? So the MacBook is my main machine that I'm broadcasting from. Yeah. If you had a separate computer, a separate laptop, and you wanted to take it into Ecamm, you could do that a couple of ways. Either take the HDMI out from the MacBook, take it into something like a Camlink, plug it into your main computer, and then it would show up as a camera. And so you would be able to bring in the screen from the MacBook, but it would be technically it would show up as a camera. The other way of doing it is, I don't want to get too technical again in this session, but I don't want to go down a rabbit hole again, but there is a technology called NDI, which is for transmitting video over a network, either wired or wirelessly. So there's a piece of software called NDI Scan Converter that you can have on your MacBook, and then in Ecamm it would just show up as a video source if you are using that. So that's another way that you can get it in. But I'm personally using my MacBook is the machine that's driving everything. How do you recommend doing the share screen with a smaller monitor than? Yeah, I mean, so I've split my monitor into this arbitrary sort of 6 areas, but it's exactly the same process. Whether you just have like one particular area of your screen that you share, or maybe you've got a screen that you share the whole of it. It doesn't really matter. It's just to have this idea that if you use the Moom tool, Moom app, to know that you can always put something in the correct place, then it just means that you can have that efficiency of only having a small number of scenes relatively in Ecamm, but just instinctively be able to share something to it without thinking about it too much. I don't have to think to myself, what app am I wanting to share and where's the button for it? I just instinctively know that it's that area. And it could be a smaller monitor with, just 2 spaces that I share. Because I do a lot of tech tutorials, and I often end up sharing lots of different things. That's why it's just helpful to have a larger screen, but it's not essential at all. It's the same principle though, hopefully. How do you run PowerPoint that has live videos embedded in the PowerPoint? It's exactly the same process. You just share your PowerPoint in the same way that I shared Keynote, and then if there are videos embedded in PowerPoint that are playing, they would just play through as well. And if they've got audio on them and you want the audio to pass through, just do that thing that I mentioned where you enable the system audio to pass through, but it would do exactly the same thing. Paul Dixon, what's the name of the graphics person? Paul Dixon. You've got to go and just search for his, just go into the Ecamm Live community and type in Paul Dixon, and then go and look at some of his posts, because he always comes up with like really, really elegant design work. There's a temptation with Ecamm. because it can do so much in terms of, we can put all sorts of borders, drop shadows, colors, and all of these other things. And then we can add in all sorts of other overlays and animations. There's a temptation, and I certainly am guilty of this previously, to go a little bit overboard and want to try and do all of the things. What I love about Paul is he's just got a really just efficient and elegant style about everything that he designs. It's just amazing. So just go and check him out. You'll see what I mean. I've got that one already. Sorry. In interview mode, how can I record the guest's isolated video at 1080p? Unfortunately, what this is when you are bringing in, for the benefit of others, when you are bringing in different guests, and I won't go in too much depth into this at the moment, but basically in the recording section, where are we? Recording. You've got the option, as well as recording in Ecamm and recording the production, you do have the option of recording individual cameras as well. Now, I personally never use this because I never do any repurposing. I find even repurposing content, it's easier for me to just record it again as a short form video. But you can record isolated video of the individual cameras, up to 3 of them on your computer. But even if you're streaming in 4K or your cameras are coming in at 4K, the isolated video for your cameras will be 1080p, and the interview guests and Zoom guests will be 720. And the reason for that is just it's preventing people from inadvertently trying to process like potentially 14 video encoding tasks at once, because if you've got 10 interview guests and you've got your 3 cameras and you've also got the stream itself or the recording itself, that's a massive processing load. And so it's really just to stop people who might not otherwise realize what's going on. I mean, technically it would be great if we could say, right, well, the interview guest's coming in at 1080 and I only got one of them, so let's just record just that one isolated guest. But because there isn't that fine level of adjustment just yet, whether that will change in the future, I don't know, but that's why it's capped at that. So at the moment there isn't a way of doing that. If you are using Zoom in rather than interview mode, then it could be that you have the although technically that's only the active speaker in any case. I was going to say you could potentially combine it with the Zoom recording, but no, at the moment that's the way it is, and it's to stop people running their processor into the ground inadvertently without realizing it. Is the question scene also shared? If you mean this scene here, I'm not sure what you mean by shared. I've mentioned earlier about how I'd created that, and this is one that we didn't just create now. We just created this Cam 1, Cam 2, and these ones. But I did walk through how that comment scene was set up a little bit earlier on. So yeah, I don't know if I'm misunderstanding the question there or not. Can you drop a green screen over the PDF to draw on it? What you want is video pencil. Video pencil. Oh, no, that's not going to work. I thought I'd got a shortcut for it. There's a great guy in the Ecamm community called Michael Forrest, and he's created an app called Video Pencil. I don't have my iPad here with me, which is annoying. But Video Pencil, basically, it takes, you actually see the input from Ecamm on your iPad. So you're looking at your iPad and you can see your Ecamm production. And then you use your pencil to write on the iPad, and then that appears in Ecamm itself. I've got a tutorial about that on my YouTube channel, but I don't have it to hand right now. But yeah, that's the best way to do that. But in theory, if you're using some other way of getting, writing on a green screen on your iPad and bringing that in, absolutely you could do that. But Video Pencil, honestly, is you won't regret it. It's the best option there, completely. When adding a video as an overlay, how do you keep the audio? Thank you for that. Yeah, I talked about video and embedding it, and we talked about it being where you're using the scene source for things like B-roll, intros or outros. There is as well animated video overlays, and that is just down here. And so you can add a video as that. So for example, I mentioned this one, for example, the like and subscribe. This is an animated video that just happens to be that small size. Incidentally, I created that as an animation in Keynote and exported it as a video. By default, or not by default, but movie files and MP4s, when you import them as an overlay rather than as the scene source, the audio won't come through. I've got to confess, I'm not sure why that is. There's a reason, but I can't remember what the reason is. But the audio doesn't come through. But you can convert them to a WebM file, and there is an application called Shutter Encoder. And with Shutter Encoder, which is a free program, you can convert the video file that is MP4 or movie file that has sound. You convert it to a WebM, and then you can bring it in that way, and that will have the audio on it. So that's how you do that. Whoops, come out of this one. You mentioned creating an immersive experience. Can I stand in front of a green screen, teach from the Vibe board, and make it look like I'm on stage with? Yeah, I mean, that's taking it to another level. This studio that I'm in right now, there's actually 3 studio spaces in here, and this one is not quite complete yet, but getting close to it. The one that I'm going to be in downstairs, that's more like a virtual stage, and I'm going to incorporate green screen that I'll use occasionally in there, but absolutely you can do that done. So you could have like your green screen in the background. You could have your Vibe board. So a Vibe board, for those that don't know, is kind of like a big screen, but you can write on it. It's like a digital whiteboard, I guess. And you could have that in front of your green screen, and then in the background you could have all of the your virtual set or whatever you wanted. So absolutely, and Ecamm's green screen is really great. The key to good green screen is light yourself as you ordinarily would, but then ensure that the green screen itself is well illuminated as well. Sometimes people just sort of blast themselves and everything with light, but then you end up being like sort of washed out, and you don't have the same quality of lighting on yourself. The secret to it is make sure that the green screen is, I mean, if it's custom, you might want to just paint the wall, but make sure that it is well illuminated so that you've got a nice even color of green over the whole of it, and then lighting on yourself that's adequate. And so yeah, you can absolutely create it to look like a proper stage. So curious which MacBook is running all this. So this is the M3 Pro Max. So it was like the top MacBook M3 when it came out last year, was it, or the year before? I can't remember actually. No, must have been the year before, I think. So yeah, that's what's doing it. I do sometimes use another Mac in conjunction with it, or in the Digital Stage Summit, I used 3 Macs, but generally the day-to-day, I'm just using this one to run everything. So with that said, with only having run over 20 minutes so far, let me just come back to the little tasks for today. So the day 2 challenge, and I hope that the way that we ran through things today might have been a little bit clearer and more sequential than it was yesterday, where I know we sort of jumped in and out and around of things. But basically what we've covered today, though, is this idea of having a plan and thinking about what is the content you are going to be making, and think about like what are the scenes that you are going to need to do that. And it's either going to be, camera scenes, maybe it's going to be a screen share, maybe incorporating a video or a presentation or something like that, and just think about like the minimum that you can do that with, and so the sort of basic requirements that you have there, rather than planning out a 50 scene masterpiece. Just think about those few scenes that you can get, because once you start getting into the habit of switching back and forth between a few scenes, it becomes second nature, and then you can start thinking, oh well, there's one more that I want to add in, and it's much easier to adapt to just adding in one more and incrementally getting up to a whole scene list with 50, rather than just planning out 50 and then promptly forgetting which one's which. So your challenge for today then is to create your scene flow, think about them and what scenes you're going to need. Decide which is right for you. Probably those 2 approaches that I mentioned. One is where you just have, let's say, 3 scenes or 5 scenes, and you are just instinctively know which one you want to go to at which time. That's the way that I do it. But other people prefer to have literally a sequential list where it's kind of like, okay, main camera, 2 people, main camera, screen share, main camera, and you've got your full run of show. One of those 2 approaches is going to kind of shout out to you that that's the best way to go. So whichever that is, whatever the scenes you create your scene flow, and then record a 2 to 3 minute, not second, 2 to 3 minute video. Let me just correct that on the fly. This is why it's easier to do it in Keynote. 2 to 3 minute video, not a second video. There we go. And let's just play that again. And then you can post that into the Ecamm community. And now you don't necessarily have to. I mean, this is all about, one take video production, but it's not the case that you set up the scenes and then just hit record and then you can just go straight into it. It is useful to actually have a practice as well. So if you are using a Stream Deck, if not, we'll talk about that more tomorrow. We've kind of run out of time to go into it today, but we'll go into that in more detail tomorrow. Then just practice sort of pressing the buttons and flicking between them. By the way, I keep mentioning Stream Deck. If you don't have Stream Deck, then if you have got Ecamm is your active application, then just pressing the number keys, 1, 2, 3, corresponds to the scenes 1, 2, 3, and 4, and so on. So you can use those to kind of flick between them. You don't have to do it with the mouse. But just get into this process of practicing the flow. So you're talking into the camera, you're talking to the screen share, you've got the screen share up. And by the way, another thing is, in this example here of a screen share, one thing to note is just look at the orientation of you compared to the content that you're sharing. Now, the thing that you see on your screen, which is my screen share, is over to my right. And so when I look at it, it looks like I'm looking into it on the screen as well. This scene would look a little bit weird if my camera was over the other side and the screen share was over here. And forget the perspective, imagine we turned it in. But if I was kind of looking at my content over here and it looked like I was looking out of the screen, it would just look completely unnatural. So just note, like, wherever the content is, when you look at it, it looks like you're looking at it on the screen. It's going to just make it look a little bit more cohesive in that respect. So yeah, that is the task for today then. And do go ahead and share it into the community. Don't worry about what you record. It's fine. You will hopefully have figured out by now, if you are completely new, the Ecamm community is a very friendly place and everyone is there just to support and uplift. So whatever you post there, you're sure to get some really positive feedback, even if it is constructive in nature. It's only going to be with good intentions. So feel free to go and share your videos in there, and it could be just whatever. You could just talk about what it is you're intending to do, but just do a couple of scene switches in there just to get into the habit of it. And then when we go into tomorrow, what we're going to be talking about is more of the actual record, although that's a recording task, isn't it? But we're talking about more of the process and the planning and things like that. And I will talk about Stream Deck because if you haven't got one already or aren't using one, forget Ecamm. Stream Deck is something that every desk should have. So it's not just an Ecamm tool. Stream Deck is like the ultimate productivity tool. It just so happens that it's a match made in heaven with Ecamm as well, because it allows you to control all of these things. And especially if you've got some presentation software running, like Keynote, and you're also running Ecamm, and maybe you want to use ProMouse, and you want to use the features on ProMouse to zoom into the screen and all of those kind of things. Suddenly what happens is all of these different separate pieces of software get united in the Stream Deck, and the Stream Deck becomes your little mission control where you can control it all from. And that's why, like in my setup over here, I've got my Stream Decks in front of me, and I can basically control everything with the touch of a button. So yeah, definitely recommend that if you're not sure. So the screen share and the angles, Michael, that you mentioned there. That is let me show you in here before we wrap up over here. We've got the overlay settings here, and I didn't go through all of these, but if you go to this one here, it's this perspective, and I found that about 55 going one way on one and 55 going on the other kind of looks fairly natural. If you go too much, and just to show you what that's doing, by the way, might help. If I go back to here, if I change the perspective, so 0 is going to be like that. And then if I go too much the other way, obviously that's just sort of unreadable, isn't it? And my sort of preference for this is if you put that on about 55, then it should look right. Just do the other one the same. So whatever the perspective is on that one, do the other one the same going in. You can also do this. I mean, I've done it on the comments here as well. I've done it on this one with, that would be a person if I'd got somebody coming in on Zoom as well. So that is that's how you do that, Michael. Well, with that said, at only half an hour overrun, I am going to leave it there. And please do go and make some attempts to go and do that little task there and drop it into the Facebook group or into the Discord as well. And I'll definitely go and check them out. And apart from that, I'll see you all at the same time tomorrow. If you've got any questions, by the way, feel free to drop them into the comments, and you can always just tag me in any questions that you've got directly in the Facebook group as well. And I will go through all of the comments because I haven't been keeping up with the actual comments, only the questions, and see what I missed in there as well. Apart from that, have a wonderful day wherever you are. It's midnight here, so it's past my bedtime. I'm about to turn into a pumpkin. See you all tomorrow. Good night.